Amy Poehler is here. She is an actor. She is a comedian. She is much more. She was a cast member on Saturday Night Live from 2001 to 2008. Now she is the star of the NBC comedy Parks and Recreation. She's just written a book. It is called Yes, Please. So I am pleased to have Amy Poehler back at this table. Now look at this, Mr. and Mrs. America. This is the New York Times. This ad cost them at least like maybe $150,000 or something.
Yeah, I was going to say at least $200.
Probably that. By purchasing Yes, Please by Amy Poehler, you commit to the following: as a reader of Yes, Please, I hereby swear to purchase the book and to read it. Book may be read on subway, airplane, or elliptical machine. Book shall not be read while driving, giving birth, or walking near mall water fountains. All parties agree to discuss the book with family and friends and purchase multiple copies.
I wish you could keep reading that. That sounds nice when you read it, Shirley.
Oh, my God.
Sunk my life savings into that ad.
So your publishers are big time. They have big expectations for you.
Yes.
They don't take out ads like this
Lots of pressure.
unless they think that Amy can deliver.
Yeah, nowhere to go but down after that ad.
So here you are at the ripe old age of something, deciding that it's time to write my memoir.
Yes.
It's time. I've got so much to tell.
That's right.
It's going to,
Well, I'm 43, and I find myself kind of stuck in the middle of life, right? Young children, parents still alive, really busy, career luckily flourishing and feeling really juicy. And I have a very street-level perspective of life so far, not a bird's-eye view. And a lot of the stuff that I read are people who look back, or have some perspective and looking back over a long life, or young people kind of on the verge, ready to step into the next thing. And I was interested in...
What's it like in the middle of it?
It's thick. It's very it's very chewy. It's flavorful.
Yeah.
It's also hectic, and there's a lot of confusion as to who you are, what you're supposed to do.
Now, would you write? You and I went to a dinner for Norman Lear.
Yes.
All right, maybe 10, 15 people there. Were you writing the book then, or did that inspire you to write the book?
I was writing then, and Norman, who is
90.
Yes, and who wrote a beautiful book, even this I get to experience, is a friend of mine, and I'm happy to say. And I would speak about our books, and I would kind of laugh because it just felt so silly for me to talk about my memoir next to Norman. But he encouraged me and reminded me that everybody's voice is distinct and different. And my approach to the book was really less, this is my life, and more, this is how I'm feeling and thinking.
Right. This is my experience.
This is my experience so far, yeah. And it's kind of a compendium of essays and stories and personal stories and lists and lots of jokes, hopefully. Yeah. And my goal was really just to be funny and truthful, which that alone was hard to do.
Really?
To be truthful and funny at the same time?
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, do you think being funny helps you with being truthful?
Well, I think writing as yourself was an exercise for me that I hadn't done, really, where I had to figure out the parameters of what I wanted to share, how I wanted to share it. And I'm so used to writing a character. You know, I think while I was writing this book, I was writing scripts for Parks and Recreation, a show that I'm on, and it was just like water, you know, being able to write in someone else's voice. You know, and so.
Well, you know, speaking of that, when I had to make a speech, and so I reached out to Seth to help me. You know, I just said, you know, he was too busy.
Well, was he too busy?
He was too busy because he was preparing for whatever he did, the thing he did out there. And he said to me, I'm
going to nail him if he said he was too busy for Charlie Rose.
He did say that.
That's ridiculous.
Now, but he said, look, I'm right now, I'm in the midst of practicing for something he was doing with the Emmys or something.
Maybe he was hosting the Emmys.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Whatever he was hosting. And he said, in fact, I've got Tina and Amy writing jokes for me.
Yes. Well, Seth gave us some good zingers for the Golden Globes, and we tried to return the favor.
Who came up with the George Clooney zinger?
That was Alex Bays, who is a writer, who is the head writer of Late Night with Seth Meyers, actually. Yes. And he's an ex-Weekend Update writer. Great joke. Yeah. That was a great joke. And he also, Sam Means, a writer, wrote the joke the previous year of the James Cameron joke.
Oh, yeah. Right. What was that? Do you remember?
It was... Catherine Bigelow here tonight. You know, I haven't really been following the controversy about Zero Dark 30, but when it comes to torture, I trust the woman that spent 3 years married to James Cameron.
That's great.
It's fine, right? Lots of fun.
Yes. And Clooney's never seen. What was the Clooney joke?
Oh yeah, Clooney's joke was I just saw what was the movie? What was the name of the movie?
Gravity.
Gravity. Just saw Gravity. George Clooney would rather float off into space than spend 5 more minutes with a woman his own age. He's a lot of fun, that one.
I mean, the gift of being able to be funny. I mean, did you have that or did you learn that?
Well, thank you. When you say that, I don't even really know if it feels funny to respond to that. But I found myself liking to perform at an early age. Yeah, I write in the book that I was doing a performance of The Wizard of Oz when I was 4th grade.
Fourth grade.
But mentally probably 4, emotionally probably 4,
and you loved it.
And I got a laugh.
Oh boy!
And I got a laugh, and I remember this feeling of getting one and really liking it and leaning into it.
Yeah.
And wanting to get it again. But I think I had to learn how to perform, certainly, and be a better performer.
Yeah, you learn timing and things like that, I think.
You do. And you learn how to work with other people, how to sometimes go against... You know, our first natural instincts are not always great. They're just kind of like cheap and a little selfish and, you know, and a little repetitive. And you kind of sometimes learn how to sift through that first layer, which is kind of like the instinct. You go with your instinct, but it's not always great, your first instinct when you perform. So
you also learn. I mean, I learned a little bit by watching. It is instinct. It is timing. It is also a craft. I mean, you really know what a great joke needs, you know, and how to deliver the payoff.
You know, I should say I've gotten better at knowing how I can deliver a joke. I don't know if I know what a great joke in general needs, but I have gotten better at knowing what I can do well, which is half the battle, I think, to read something and know I can deliver this, or if I tweak this, it will come out better out of my mouth. And that's what Weekend Update helped me with, is just doing joke after joke and learning what ones were working and what wasn't working, and saying, I'm going too fast, or I need to personalize this moment, or, you know, that kind of stuff is certainly learned.
Yeah, and to me, it also seemed the ability to sort of to see and feel the funny of it. You know, so you tell it with a certain upness.
Yes, and also the audience can't be nervous or worried for you. Yeah. They really have to feel relaxed. It's like what great comedic performers do, I think, is they just seem like they're in control and everything's going to be okay, even when they're on the wire. And the audience gets excited about how not nervous they are.
Yes, Please is the title of this?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, it means a few things for me. One is saying yes has really given me pretty much everything I have in my life. It's the tenets of improv. It's the idea of agreeing and seeing what happens next. And I like to say yes to things, including being asked to write a book. And the please is added because as I've gotten older, I realize you kind of can't do it alone. And it's a privilege to get to do it. So I like that combination. It's kind of a statement and a question. And it's also a title my kids can say. And they like to say it a lot around the house.
Yes, please.
If I do my job right.
Was it hard to do this?
It was. I write about it being difficult, which I don't know if it's self-indulgent, but I do, because I think that I enjoy peeking behind the curtain in work and in art, and I like the people that don't pretend things are easy. And I find with a lot of writers and books, people treat them as if they're just kind of like beautiful golden eggs that were, I like the effort. I like showing my work. So I try to do that in the beginning of the book, and I write about it being kind of difficult.
Yeah, didn't you say it's like having a screwdriver trying to pick at a huge
I
piece of ice or something?
joke that people ask me, how's the book going? Which, by the way, anytime anyone asks you how's the book going, you immediately start to lie, because you're just like, it's going great.
It's fine.
And you're in a full-blown panic. Everything's so smooth. But I would say it's like brushing away dirt from a fossil. It's such a load of... And then I realized it was like, oh, no, it's just hacking away, at a freezer with an ice pick.
Did Tina help you? She had a book before yours.
She did. I mean, she was much too busy to help me with any of the writing, but I was certainly encouraged by the work that she did. And I mentioned in the book that I reread her book and other writers that I loved.
You read them beforehand to get a feeling for what you wanted to do.
To remind myself about what I loved about writing and about specific female voices. I read a lot of Nora Ephron, and reread, and it was terrible because she's such a great writer that it was just awful to read her beautiful stuff and then go back to my computer. But I
know when you read a great writer, and you say, I can never do this. I just can't be that good.
Yeah, it's really discouraging. When you're writing a book, you don't want to read any other books. You want to. But so I try to inspire myself in different ways.
You said something that's interesting to me. I'm talking about improv and seeing it at 4 years old and feeling the applause. What happened after that? I mean, did you then say, I know what I want to do, or can you do that when you're 10 years old?
Yeah, I came from a very blue-collar family, and I had never met an actor or a writer. I didn't know anyone that had.
I didn't know anybody either. They were
so I didn't know that was a real job.
Farmers.
One that you could do.
Right.
And I lived, in a suburb outside of Boston, so I thought to myself, oh, that's fun. I like to show off and get attention. And then I just kind of tucked it away and just was a kid in school, learning and being just a suburban kid. I never acted when I was young. I never did some school plays, and I reached out a little bit. And then when I got to college, I joined an improv group and started understanding this idea of ensemble and, getting to the show on time and just all that kind of fun stuff. But it was a very slow, gradual
But you weren't thinking about professional life at that time.
I wasn't. I was thinking about being a teacher. Both my parents were public school teachers, and I liked the idea of that. And it wasn't until I started performing at college in Chicago that I thought, I can be a waitress anywhere. Let's try it. Let's give this a try.
And improv was your thing.
Yeah, that turns me on because it's just truly dangerous. Good improv is just this alchemy that is, very dependent on the other, and active listening, and taking risks and chances. And I had tried stand-up, and I have done sketch for a very, very long time. But improvisation still remains the thing that, I feel very devoted to.
So what do we mean by improvisation?
Well, very quickly, the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is a theater that I started along with 3 other guys from Chicago, and we have theaters in New York and LA. What we do is basically long-form improvisation, full shows that are completely improvised, completely made up, inspired by a suggestion.
They differ from night to night to night to night?
Oh, yeah. They differ from hour to hour, And doing scenes that are improvised on the spot. And a lot of time, improvisation for most people is kind of like short kind of games, comedy games. And we just kind of do long plays. And it's just really fun.
You said an interesting thing. You said improvisation and sketch comedy gave me my currency. I assume that. Well, tell me what that meant.
If you're lucky, you get to at some point kind of decide what your currency is. For some people, it's their looks. For other people, it's their brains. And some lucky people, it's both. Yes. But I learned early on that my currency was my ability to my willingness to transform and look silly and play. And I just funneled that into sketch and improv and writing. And I just didn't have to depend or worry as much about being pretty, which is every young person's unfortunate burden, is how do I look? What do they think of me?
Who am I?
Who am I? who am I, and who am I in relation to the rest of them? And so sketch and improv gave me a tribe, you know, a group of people that I felt comfortable with, and an escape from, you know, my own face.
No need to do that. But you also said improvisation is like the military. You leave no man behind.
You remember the times when you're in battle and someone abandons you, and you really never forgive them. If you're in a scene...
Is this like pushing you under the truck, or is it something else?
It's like bailing. It's like running away. It's like deserting. If you're in a scene that's not going well, and you turn to your partner and you look at them and their eyes are like, wow,
where are we going?
Where are we going? You and me. Like, this is crazy, right? And you think, I love you forever. And if you turn around and you look at someone and they're gone, you think,
they're not having you.
No, where'd you go?
Is it as fun? Is it easy now than it's ever been? I mean, you're doing scripted shows now.
It's to improvise right now is kind of a little more difficult for me because I haven't done it in a while, and I get a little bit in my head, I think, because I'm not as loose as I used to be.
Really?
Yeah.
Not as sharp?
Definitely not as sharp. I think I'm a little more tired. But I think it's like a muscle that I haven't worked in a while. So I've been doing a lot of sketch, and or rather doing a lot of written stuff with Parks and Rec and films and stuff. And so when I go back to my theater, I have to quicken my step a little bit, and the young people that I'm improvising with.
Do you do that? I mean,
I do. Yeah, I improvise all the time.
Is it like some comedians will go to the comedy club and just stand up and see?
That's what it feels like for me. It's like dropping in on a Sunday night and seeing who's playing and getting in there, and the audience is happy to see you, but, you know, they're also expecting, you know, so you have to show them a good time. I like it. I like that feeling of not treating anything too precious and having a place where you can always stop in.
You said you knew you were going to be on Saturday Night Live. You phrased it this way. Did I know I was going to be on Saturday Night Live? The answer is yes.
Okay, then I guess I did. I kind of did.
You do develop a currency, in which the community knows that somebody's got it. You don't know when it's going to hit,
I wanted to say it like this, which is, and I didn't want to sound, you know, like I was bragging or being immodest, but there was a voice inside of me that believed I could do it, that I would see that show and I would think, I think I'm going to do that. That just feels not so far away from me. That being said, I never in my wildest dreams could imagine I would be doing what I'm doing now. If I was asked to draw a blueprint of my life, it would have stopped at, you know.
Same thing. I mean,
it would have stopped at my improv group in college. I would have been like, this sounds great. I'm very happy. Good, we're done.
Right. And when you got to Saturday Night Live, and when you and Tina, was that instant chemistry?
Yeah, we met in Chicago.
Oh, that's right. You went around the country, didn't you?
That's right. We met in the early 90s. In a place called Improv Olympic, IO Theater, and we were on a team together. And so we had performed together for many, many years before we were at SNL. And Chicago was, you know, when I arrived in Chicago in '93, it was swollen with talent. It was Steve Colbert and Amy Sedaris and Steve Carell and Chris Farley had just left and Mike Myers had just left. It was just like the comedians that were working there were just really special. And so I felt like I was part of something special, even though I was just, you know, taking classes and waiting tables.
Chicago became that, didn't it?
It did.
It was a route.
It's conveniently removed in a way that allows people to not feel this New York, LA pressure to get cherry-picked into doing shows, and so you kind of just do the work. It's a theater town.
So was there chemistry, though, between you and Tina? I mean, was that...
Yeah. Right away. We just liked each other, and I think we just saw talent in each other. We liked that about each other.
But it clicked in terms of timing. You know where she's going. She can feel you. All of those things that make it.
For sure. We just have been sitting or standing next to each other for many years.
And then Seth became part of your circle.
Seth and I started SNL together. We were, and
he was a writer at first, or
he was a writer. He was a cast member,
right?
A new cast member, like I was in 2001, and our first show was 2 weeks after September 11th in 2001, and it was such a really strange time to start a job on a, you know, current sketch comedy show, weekly comedy show in New York City. So we kind of dug in and you know, we were figuring out where the bathrooms were together, you know. We kind of just getting lay of the land. And it took a while. And it was such a, you know, people were saying that comedy was dead and we'll never laugh again. You know, and of course we did.
What did you come away with Saturday Night Live? I mean, confidence,
I came away
experience.
Yes, Saturday Night Live is like comedy camp. You know, it's really, you learn how to write, produce, think on your feet, get used to live television, not get too precious about your jokes,
not get too precious, being willing to them not to be
cut your
perfect.
stuff. You know, it's, you can tell when you work with different writers and people argue about wanting to, let's say your show is 3 minutes over. You know, you have to deliver a 21-minute episode, and you're 3 minutes over, and you say, I think this could go and this could go. And people are like, yeah, but I think that's funny. Yeah. You know, and you're like, oh, yeah, everything's funny. Hopefully at this point, you know, everything's funny. Yes. That's what SNL gets you used to, is we call it like, you know, killing your babies, which is basically like your perfect joke has to go. There's just no
like
time.
Killing your babies.
Yeah. I should think of a better term. But
when did Parks and Recreation come up?
That happened in 2008.
It's now the 7th year.
Yes, we're finishing our 7th season, 7th and final season. And that started in 2008. My son was born, and the creator, Michael Schur, who I worked with at SNL, had gone off to work and start the American reboot of The Office, starring Steve Carell. He called me and said, I've got this idea for a character. I think you should do it, and you're going to love the way we shoot. It's just really fun and loose. And I thought, oh, I just ended a 7-year job, and I just had a kid, and I don't know. And he said, well, just read the script, you know, see if you like it. And, you know.
You read the script?
Yeah. You know. I was like, oh, man, I got to do this.
Take a look at this. This is when Leslie is taking a phone call. Here it is. Why has the show been so successful, do you think? Is it the conceit of the show, or what is it?
I think that people grew to really care and love the characters. Yeah. I think that they wanted to see the characters every week. You know, we always talked about it in the writers' room and on set about the shows that we loved, and that, you know, I always liked characters that you could imagine what they did on the weekends, you know, when you weren't watching them. And I think Pawnee, the fictional town that we created in Parks and Rec, feels real, and it's populated by these beautiful weirdos. And I think our characters are people that people wanted to keep checking in with and see what happened to them. And certainly Leslie Knope is a character that's just like this exuberant cheerleader who is really swings really big and is not very cool and loves the people she works with and is very passionate about the things she wants to do.
Has she changed over the 7 years?
Oh, absolutely. We've gone through, when we kind of first meet her, she's in a failed relationship and, you know, trying to figure out how to operate within the system. And in season 7, she's many years later, and she's figured some things out. She's in love, and she's married, and she has children, and she's now fighting. We always talked about when we did the show, how does one become a player, you know, and how does one become powerful without becoming corrupt? How do you figure out how to be an insider and still stay true to those big ideas that got you involved in public service in the first place?
Tell me about the thing that you are doing now called Smart Girls at the Party.
Well, it started...
It's a great idea, and I thought about it when you were talking about at an earlier moment.
Great. Well, thank you for asking. It's a website. It's a big idea that came from a very small idea. The small idea was, let's do a web series where we interview kind of regular girls about what they're interested in, and we treat it as seriously as a Charlie Rose style show. So I got a round table, and I sat with young girls in a dark studio, and I asked them questions about writing and being a sister and what it's like to
To be alive.
To be alive. Just and what are you curious in? And we wanted to do just that small series. And what happened was it started to grow, and now we're creating programming that we hope is like kind of a celebration of being yourself, really. Just the kind of antithesis to so much crap on the internet and all the stuff that comes with it.
Good for you.
Thank you, Charlie.
The book is called Yes, Please, Amy. Thank you.
Thank
Pleasure.
you. Thank you for
Pleasure.
having me,
Pleasure.
always.